Hi, and welcome to the Serial Killers podcast. It's a podcast all about the pests, diseases and problems that affect arable crops. Each week we're going to do a deep dive into one of those particular problems. Hi Josie.
Hello.
So today's Serial Killers podcast is about Sclerotinia. Now, Sclerotinia is not actually a disease that affects cereals, but cereals are important for the control of this disease. So it's a disease that affects every other type of combinable crop and probably every horticultural crop and field veg crop. So it affects oilseed rape, sunflowers and beans. What type of organism is it, Josie?
It's a fungal infection, also known as white mould.
Yep.
And within this family, you also find botrytis.
Right, so that's grey mould, isn't it?
Yes.
And so the full scientific name is Sclerotinia sclerotorium.
I'm going to apologise in advance because I have difficulty getting my lips and everything around that word.
I like that scientific name, Sclerotinia sclerotorium. And it produces fungal bodies called sclerotia.
That's right.
I mean, how could you not get that correct?
Sclerotia. I've written it down lots of times. Sclerotia.
Yeah.
It is geographically, it is one of the most destructive, widely distributed pathogens of plants.
Yeah, and it affects all the flowering plants apart from grasses, pretty much. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
And it's
it does affect oilseed rape, and it affects plants at all stages.
So it's called polyphagous because it'll eat lots of different species. And it's called white rot because it produces this white growth, doesn't it?
You get this fluffy white growth, white fungal growth.
It's also called stem rot.
That's right, because it affects the stems near soil level.
So they just fall over, don't they?
They just collapse.
Yeah, and that can be devastating if you get a real infection of Sclerotinia, and also in carrots it can destroy the quality of the carrots, even if it doesn't kill the plants. The good
Weather
news,
conditions make it worse.
Yeah, the good news is that it's easy to study because it produces these fairly large bodies called sclerotia that the spores come out of. So they fall on the ground, and you can they're really easy for scientists to study because you can just go on and collect all these up. So and these are viable for 3 years, and that's why rotation is key, because the viability is much longer than other fungal pathogens. So that's interesting. And actually, it's one of these ones where we talk about all these pests and disease on this podcast, Josie, and we always say, what's the answer? And one of the answers is always increase your planting densities.
Increase, so this is decrease.
Yeah, so this is a decrease. And that's because of the humidity in the canopy.
That's right.
Yeah.
They like temperatures above 7 degrees Celsius, and they like long periods of humidity.
And these sclerotia, these big black brown bodies on the soil surface, will pop open with and release their spores.
Sexually produced spores that are about 5 to 15 mil in diameter, so that is significant.
I think that might be the sclerotia there, that size. I can't imagine a spore being 15 millimeters in diameter.
Well, the structures.
Yeah. Then they produce the spores, and where do the spores go?
The spores land on petals. So if you've got oilseed rape, these spores will land on your petals and they'll infect your plants.
So they get in through the flowers often.
That's right. And then the petals will fall, and then they'll infect other parts of the plant and the soil as well.
But they can get in through other parts of the plants. They can get in through foliage, tubers, because if they couldn't, then carrots would never get infected because they never flower during the cropping cycle. And we talked about rust and mildew in the past. They were biotrophic, so they sort of parasitized the plant, pretended it wasn't there. And then we talked about necrotic pathogens like alternaria.
That's right.
And this one is a hemibiotrophic or semi-necrotrophic species, in that what it does is it starts off tricking the plant into thinking it's not there, and then it just goes in and acts like alternaria. It just goes in and smashes its way through cells, doesn't care, producing that rot. So it's quite a sly pathogen. It starts it and pretending it's there, not there, produces something called oxalic acid, which is a natural organic acid that sort of subdues the defenses of the plant, and then it goes in there after it's built up a head of steam, and then goes and just kills the plant outright. So an unusual pathogen in there. So if we're going to look at control...
Well, it survives for long periods in the soil.
Yeah. I've got a number of different options here for control. Obviously, one of them is rotation, because cereals and corn are not affected, you can just plant those, and then that will reduce the viability.
A 4-year crop rotation interval is recommended.
Yep. Flooding was one that I came across. Did you come across that? Yeah, so if you flood your fields, it can kill the spores.
Oh, right.
I think it's a bit like powdery mildew in that they like humid conditions, but you give them liquid water and they suddenly die, possibly due to osmotic effects. Fungicides you need to apply, but you need to apply them for protection, for preventative measures.
That's right.
Curative fungicides are very ineffective when it comes to Sclerotinia. So there are a number of synthetic fungicides you can use. You can also use chitosan, which is at Utrema. We manufacture a biofungicide that activates plant defenses and also blocks spores. So that would be a good one to try out. I think another good one to use would be something like a silicon fertilizer to make the cell walls more resistant to attack, and also to neutralize the oxalic acid that it's producing to subdue the plant's defenses. There is no resistance reported in the UK to any pesticides, any fungicides. So that's the good news. But there is resistance reported in France, and so we need to be careful about how we use our fungicides and using sort of multi-active ingredient formulations. So Josie, are there any synthetic fungicides you came across that are particularly good for prevention?
Prothioconazole, that acts as a protectant spray. Yeah,
so you can apply. There are various ones that are allowed for this use, and then there is potential to use what you would call a mycofungicide or a biofungicide that's based on a fungus that outcompetes the species. Sorry, it doesn't outcompete. It actually attacks the sclerotia, the big bodies that are produced and fall to the floor, called Coniothyrum minitans. Mm-hmm. And we both found that one. I don't think that's licensed for use yet in the UK. But you might find it infecting sclerotia on your farm. I don't know how it would be commercialised either. It would be quite a difficult one to commercialise. It would be whether you could culture it in a lab and then grow it, things like that. So that's an interesting one. The other thing about Sclerotinia, it's the reason why you shouldn't buy shop-bought garlic and potatoes, because that's one of the main pathogens you'll find on them.
Okay.
So you should always buy them from reputable producers, and then seed potatoes you always get from Scotland normally. And
that's right.
From the Black Isle. Do you know where the Black Isle is?
No, I don't.
It's this massive area of land that there isn't much there apart from seed potato growers, and the conditions prevent aphids from really getting a hold, and so there's very low disease levels there for that. So that's Sclerotinia. Any other top facts about Sclerotinia?
If you avoid excessive use of nitrogen, that will stop dense crops. So you haven't got the dense canopies. So you need it to be spacious enough for air to travel through there. Through your crops.
Another potential opportunity for is go back to rotation is introducing some more niche crops in there. So anything, borage, linseed, whatever. Whatever is hot at the moment, the niche crops can extend that rotation and hopefully reduce its levels. So yes, Sclerotinia sclerotorium.
That's a mouthful and a half.
Yeah. If you thought this was interesting and you are really now going to go out there and get to work attacking Sclerotinia, we'd really love you to review the podcast. So while you're listening to me babble on here at the end of the podcast, just go onto your Apple or Spotify app and give us a truthful review, hopefully a 5-star review. Okay. Until next time, we're going to talk about something different. It's not a pest. It's not a disease. It's not a weed. What is it, Josie?
It's a fungal infection.
No, it's not.
Isn't it?
No, we're going to talk about salinity next.
What are we talking about? Oh, salinity. Sorry. I was off there for a moment. No, I didn't. Salinity is an environmental factor that we need to look at.
Yeah. So it's actually fairly broad topic and should be, you might not think it's of relevance to you, but it is.
Not at the moment, but it's one of these up and coming ones that will be very relevant.
Okay, watch this space until next week. I'm posting these every Sunday around 2:00, so watch out for that one. Click the bell icon if you want to be notified when they appear. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Bye.